finally here. I'm finally doing it. I am reviewing the Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Foundation. This has been a long time coming. Okay, if you have seen my other Charlotte Tilbury foundation review video, well, thank you for coming back. If you haven't seen it, hi, my name's Faye. I'll link that other video down below so you can see my review of the other 3 Charlotte Tilbury foundations. And let's get started. Okie dokie, so same deal as the previous review. No primer, no setting spray. I've got skincare on, I'm going to apply the foundation, I'm going to powder half of my face, we're going to wear test, we're going to talk about all of the itty bitty details, all of the claims, how it's best to apply it, all of that stuff. So let's just get started. As before, I'm going to pump it out onto my palette so you can see the consistency of the product. So here we go. So you can see slightly more on the liquidy side, but I have to say, I was actually expecting this to be even more liquidy. When I read that it was supposed to be a hydrating foundation, I was picturing like a really, like kind of wet, slippy, really moisturizing feeling formula. And it's actually a lot more matte than I expected. Theme with my previous video, things being matte. But even though it feels kind of matte, like look, when I apply it on the skin, it's not like super like liquidy and hydrating. It's a little thicker and stiffer than I kind of expected for a hydrating formula, but I'm actually really pleased about it because it doesn't feel super wet on the face. Like when you've got it on, it doesn't feel like it's sliding about or that it's completely wet and it's just going to transfer right off. It actually feels kind of not dry, but like only like a little bit tacky. So I'm pretty pleased about the feel of the formula and the fact that it's not as wet and slippy and hydrating feeling as I expected, because here's a change since my previous video. I no longer set my face with powder. I've decided that I prefer to hydrate my skin, use a more matte formula foundation, and then leave it unset, which is a big change for me. But honestly, it was like the Magic Foundation, the Charlotte Tilbury Magic Foundation, that converted me to that way of thinking. And yeah, it's working really well for me. Anyway, so back to this foundation. Even though I said it doesn't feel like as slippy and wet and hydrating as a formula as I thought it would be, that doesn't mean it's not hydrating. Like this formula does not dry out my skin. And I have been like testing this for a while now. Like I've been wearing this like day in, day out, over and over, because there's a lot of like claims with this foundation, right? There's a lot of claims. And so I really wanted to be thorough and test it out before I made this video, because, you can make a video straight away when a foundation comes out, but what do you really know about it apart from like immediate application? I think I've got like a hair stuck to my face. Oh, it's really tickly. Anyway, so let's talk about application, because as you can see, I'm applying this all with my fingers, and honestly I think this is the best way to apply this foundation. It is like completely possible to apply it with a brush or apply it with a sponge, but you're gonna eat up a lot of product because it is a more like sort of light coverage formula. And I found like when I used a brush that I used a lot more product. You can see I've been applying this and look how much product is still on my palette. Like I really didn't need 2 pumps. 1 pump would have been fine. It really eats up a lot more product than it does if you apply it with your fingertips. So you're just sort of wasting foundation, and it's not like the cheapest foundation, the Charlotte Tilbury foundation. So it kind of wastes product. And with a sponge, oh, got it in my hair. With a sponge, the sponge just eats up coverage. Like it's a pretty light coverage foundation in my opinion. They say it's buildable medium, we'll talk about that in a sec, but I think it's kind of a light coverage foundation, and if you use a sponge it really soaks up too much coverage. So I would really just apply it with the fingertips, and if you want to go in and blend out any little issues, little finger marks with a sponge afterwards, like around the nose or the eyes, you can do that. So I've still got this hair like stuck to my face, but I can't see it, and it's really tickling. Okay, so I wasn't really concentrating, so I haven't paid attention to where I've applied foundation. Have I applied it to my whole face now? I think I have. I can tell from the colour. This is shade 2. It says it's neutral. I think it's a little warm. It's actually a little dark and warm for me. I probably should have bought shade 1, but never mind. We're just going to apply it like down the neck as well, so that I don't have a different coloured face to the rest of my body. So yeah, it is possible, like I said, to apply it with a sponge, but I would recommend going in with your fingers first, and then if you want to do a little build of coverage, not a lot build of coverage because, well, I'll get to that in just a sec, but if you want to do a little build of coverage just in like a very specific area, then you can use a sponge. So just for an example, there's my first layer, still got plenty on the palette. I'm going to take a sponge, dip it in, and I'm just going to do like my nose, because it's hard to do your nose with fingers, and you can see it applies fine, but I would waste so much product if I did my whole face like this. And then if I want to build a little coverage just where I get a little redness, I can go dab, 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 dab. But okay, now let's really talk about this whole buildable medium situation, because they do claim it's buildable and they claim you can get medium coverage. Now, here's how I feel about buildable foundations. Like, just don't do it. Just don't do it. If you want a medium coverage foundation, buy a medium coverage foundation. If you want a light coverage foundation, either shear out a medium coverage foundation so that it's light, or use a light coverage foundation. But don't try and use a light coverage to get medium or medium coverage to get full. Like, don't go in that direction, if that makes sense. Because if you want really nice looking, flawless makeup, the best thing you can do is use as little product as possible. So I would never advocate buying a light coverage foundation, which I consider this to be, and putting a whole second layer over your entire face to get medium coverage. Because all that happens is it goes from feeling really nice and lightweight on the skin to feeling heavy on the skin. That's what I've noticed with this. If I put a whole second layer over my whole face to try and get medium coverage, and to be honest, I still don't think you get medium coverage, then it just feels heavy and it feels, I wouldn't go as far to say cakey, but it doesn't feel great. And so I would say this is a light coverage foundation. It's not as light coverage as the Light Wonder. You definitely get more coverage than that. Like, I personally think this is a really nice, like, everyday foundation. And then if you want to build up in like a specific spot, like I'm just doing it here, like, okay, you can, but don't buy this thinking it's a medium coverage foundation. If you want a medium coverage foundation, buy the Magic Foundation. That's a genuinely medium coverage foundation. This is an everyday light coverage foundation. So I think we've got it on pretty well. Let me just check in the mirror. Don't want to miss any spots. I think it's looking fine. You can see here, like, with this spot that I've got, like, did that go blurry? My camera's having a thing at the moment where it goes blurry if I try and get closer to it, so I have to stay back here and then I'll film some, like, actual really close-up shots in a second. I've got this spot here and it's not really covered, you can see. Like, this is, dab a bit more on, it's a bit more covered, but yeah, I don't think this is medium coverage. Like, I dispute that. That doesn't mean I don't really like it as a foundation. I just don't think their claim that it's medium coverage is correct. Okay, so that's all of it on. I think it looks really, really nice. Now, as I say, I don't powder my foundation anymore. I just tend to powder my eye area. But for the sake of this video, I will powder half my face because that's what I did in all of my previous Charlotte Tilbury foundation testing. So I'm going to do the exact same thing as a previous video, so everything is as comparable as possible. I'm going to take the translucent Mercier powder and just powder half of my face. Just let's make sure I'm not setting any lines around my eyes. I do want to let you know that there are a couple of changes since the last video, because I have a different camera. So if you're thinking this looks way worse on the skin than the other foundations, it doesn't. It's just that my camera picks up more detail now, so my skin doesn't look as good. It's more real. And the other thing is that my chin has got a little bit more oily. Like, my chin was already kind of oily and my nose area, like this area of my face, still gets really dry. So I don't know if I'm just pure combination, still dry combination, just every type of skin that you can possibly have on your face kind of combination right now. But I have dry patches, I have oily patches, I have pretty much everything going on. So let's just set this half of the face. And as I said, this isn't something that I actually do anymore. Like I don't set my makeup. That's not to say it doesn't look nice set. It's just well, if you watch my previous video, you will have noticed me talk about how you can blend out your foundation. Sorry, get this powder off, don't want it too much. How you can blend out your foundation later in the day a lot more easily if the foundation is not powdered. Like any textural issues, anywhere that it's kind of broken up or moved around in your smile lines, you can just go and re-blend it if it's not set. Whereas if it's got powder on it, like you just can't re-blend it. So let's set the neck as well. Yeah, I really should have bought this foundation in shade 1, I think, but I was gonna say maybe if I get a tan in the summer, but I'm going to Scotland for my summer holiday, so seriously doubt that I'm gonna get a tan up there. Okay, so that is it set. I'll bring you a little bit closer so you can really see what it looks like. Okay, here we have the unpowdered side of my face. Hopefully you can see pretty well. This is what it looks like. Over to the powdered side. Obviously with the powder, pores and things, everything's a bit matte, so they're a bit less noticeable. Stupid hair on my face. That's it, powdered. You can see this spot is poking through. Hopefully you could see my skin there in those bathroom close-ups. Let's just quickly go through the claims that I have written down on my pad. So buildable, we've talked about, kind of, don't recommend it. Medium coverage, no. It's no. Hydrating, yes. I've been wearing this day after day after day after day to try and test the skincare claims. And typically if I wear foundation every single day, the dry patches on my nose get kind of bad and they start to show up and I get like flaky, dry skin that does not look cute when I put foundation over it. That did not happen with this foundation. Like my nose did not get dry. So even though it's not like one of those wet, slippy, hydrating feeling formulas, I would say it's actually a hydrating foundation, yes, but not in like a greasy way. Like I think this would be fine on oilier skins, even though it's hydrating, because there's a difference between hydrating and moisturizing, right? Hydrating is like water and moisturizing is like oils. So it's probably, I would say, fine for basically most skin types from oily through to dry. Okay, is my skin plumper? Well, I'm 31, I don't really have a problem with skin plumpness, so I can't really comment on that. But I will say that because it's a more hydrating foundation, it doesn't dry out my skin, so I don't start to feel like dried out, because when foundations are drying, then it makes the lines under my eyes more pronounced, because just the moisture's being sucked out, so I'm shriveling up like a prune, and that doesn't happen with this. So yeah. Is my skin smoother and brighter? Does it improve with each time I wear this? No, but I have a pretty hefty skincare routine already, like vitamin C, retinol, exfoliating acids. So it would be like very phenomenal if I experienced additional improvement from the foundation over and above what I'm getting from all the things I'm already doing. I don't really see any additional benefits, but maybe if you're someone who doesn't have a big skincare routine, maybe then you'll see benefits from wearing this. I'm not saying it doesn't have benefits, I'm just saying that I already do a lot with my skin, so I don't see anything additional from this foundation. Improved skin tone, like I still have these little dark spots here. I mean, it's not helping those, but neither is all the routine of everything else that I'm doing really lightening those up. So they're sort of from the sun. Yeah, okay, so it's not doing that. Minimize the appearance of pores. I will say that my pores look very smooth. I don't have very big pores in general, But I will say they're certainly not accented. It certainly doesn't highlight the pores in any way. I'm not sure if it really minimizes them, but it doesn't draw attention to them because it's not like a super dewy, glowy. I mean, you can see it on this unpowdered side. It's like a healthy glow, but it's not like super wet and shiny, so it doesn't exaggerate your pores. But I'm not sure if I would go as far to say it really minimizes them. I would, if you want minimization, I would use a pore filling primer underneath, because that's filling your pores with something is kind of the only way they're going to look smoother and smaller, really. In my opinion, I don't think it really does that. 16-hour wear, I have not tested it for 16 hours. We're going to do check-ins today. I did up to 10 hours with my previous Charlotte Tilbury review. I doubt we're going to make it to 16 hours. But we can probably say, based on how it looks later in the day, whether it could wear to 16 hours. Personally, I never wear a foundation for 16 hours. Like, that's a long day. That's a long time. I never really wear makeup for that length, but we'll see later when we check in if we believe that it would make it to 16 hours. Okay, so now we're going to do natural light and some flash photography to see if there is flashback. Okay, I'm trying to hold the camera far away enough that it can focus and not be blurry. Here we have natural light on the unpowdered side and the powdered side. I think it looks really pretty, this foundation. I really do. Okay everyone, this is our 3-hour check-in and everything is basically looking kind of the same as when I applied it, so good so far. Let's get a little closer. This is the unpowdered side, so you can see there's a little bit of glow going on, but honestly that was there when I first applied it from my skincare. I wouldn't say that I've really gotten oily at all. On the powdered side, everything is still looking pretty much the same. Nothing's really changed. So far so good, and we'll see it in another 3 hours. This is the 6-hour check-in. I'm in natural sunlight. Let's see what's happening. This is the unpowdered side. And the powdered side. If you get really close, really close, you can see just a few textural issues, but you have to be super close to my face. Like, no one is actually this close to my face in real life. From a distance where someone might actually be, like, let's put the camera here, that's probably as close as someone would actually be to me in real life. That's pretty close. You really can't see those kinds of issues, really. It's just if you get super close up, I'm being super like picky and showing you like every little detail, but really no one would see that. And certainly on the non-powdered side, it's possible to sort of tap these kinds of things away. Now that I've finished tapping just my finger over that area, you can see it's looking better. This is what I like about not setting with powder, because this side I cannot do anything about. Sorry, my finger in front of the camera is making it go blurry, but I can't really do anything about this side because it's set with powder. But this side I was able to just blend out with a little gentle tap of the finger. Okay everybody, this is actually an 11-hour check-in rather than a 10-hour check-in because I was at dance class. And considering I've been moving around and sweating in this foundation, it's looking really good. Let's get a little bit closer. You can see it's worn off a little bit just on the non-powdered side, but considering I didn't use a setting spray and I usually would use a setting spray, I'm not that surprised. It's also worn off a little bit on my chin on this side that isn't powdered. However, I still prefer it wearing off a bit to it going like a little bunchy, because this is the powdered side and it's got a little bit, just a little bit bunchy in the smile line there. Nothing like crazy noticeable or anything. It doesn't look that much worse than it did like 5 hours ago. So yeah, that's how it looks. I did blot once. I blotted at around the 8-hour mark just before I went to class.
I would also like to say that just on camera, the difference between the powdered side and the non-powdered side looks more exaggerated. I was just around people and they weren't looking at me weirdly, like, why is half of your face shiny? But on camera it kind of picks up as a little more different than it like is in real life. Okay, so it's now almost midnight, which means we're at 13 hours. So we didn't quite make it to the 16 hours that it claims to wear for, but we're close. It hasn't been changing that much over recent hours. I would say the only change now is just it's getting slightly more bunchy there in that smile line. That's it. I just ate some melon, you know, like slices of melon where you shove your face into like a half moon of melon, so it has now like worn off quite a bit around the mouth, but that was my fault. That really, it's not the foundation's fault. And forehead still looks pretty good. Again, just wearing off a little bit on the non-powdered side, but you know, in every day when I'm wearing this foundation, first of all, I probably wouldn't wear it for this long. Also, I would use a setting spray, so it would last a little bit longer. This is obviously no primer, no setting spray, just skincare and foundation. So yeah, I'm gonna go to bed and we'll jump now to tomorrow and my final thoughts.
It's the next day, so we're back with my final thoughts. I am wearing the foundation again today, but with a full face of makeup, so you can see more what it looks like on a, well, everyday basis when you actually do your makeup. So in terms of my final thoughts, downsides, there aren't many. It did cause a little bit of flashback. It wasn't horrific flashback, but it was a little bit of flashback. So just be aware of that if you're planning on wearing this for a special occasion. Other downsides, I mean, it's not a downside to me that it's only what I would consider light coverage, but it does claim to be a medium coverage foundation, and I don't think that it is. So just my thoughts on that. And but I really like the formula. I do really like the formula. It's very easy to use, if that makes sense. Easier to apply, easier to use, more beginner friendly than some of the other Charlotte Tilbury foundations like the Magic Foundation, which I talk about a lot in my other Charlotte Tilbury foundation review. If you haven't watched that already, it will be linked down below. But what I really do like about this is it doesn't create dry patches on my nose. Typically, if I wear foundation every single day, my nose starts to get dry and flaky and oof. But I wore this like, I don't know, like 10 days in a row, and it didn't dry out my nose. So I was really happy about that. The shade for me is not quite right. You can see it's like a little bit like orange on me. Maybe I need to try a different shade, but the formula is really, really lovely. It's a great everyday foundation, and I do think it's worth the price tag. Yeah, when it came out, it was just so overhyped, you know, like I wasn't annoyed, but I was almost kind of sick of hearing about it because it just felt like everybody and their mother was talking about this foundation. It was everywhere, and I was like, you know, it's a foundation, it's not going to change your life. And that's still my opinion. It is only a foundation at the end of the day, but it is a very, very good foundation. Okay, I like it very much. I'm going to continue using it, try another shade, blah blah blah. Okay, that was the end of this video. I'll link my other Charlotte Tilbury video down below, and I will see you again next time.